Am I an idiot for calling my disabled friend's husband cruel for keeping her in the mountains? My friend Tara was in an accident about 2 years ago that put her in a wheelchair. She is able to stand for a short amount of time and take a few steps, so she is pretty self-sufficient. But she needs her wheelchair, especially when she wants to leave the house. The problem is that we live in an old town in the mountains that wasn't built with disabled people in mind. It's hard for Tara to get around during the summer, and it's nearly impossible during the winter, since we get a lot of snow here. Tara tells me a lot how she wants to move out of the mountains to the city, but her husband doesn't want them to, because all their family and friends are here. My husband got a great job opportunity in the city, so we are moving there. We were having dinner with Tara and her husband, and we were talking about moving. Tara seemed happy. She said that if they move there too, it will be so good that we will already be there, and their kids would have friends there too, our kids. She told her husband that now they don't have to worry about being alone and not knowing anyone there. Her husband shut her down, saying that they already talked about this, and they need the help their families are providing them here, and they can't move away. Tara said they wouldn't need so much help if she could move around more freely in the city. I took Tara's side and the conversation went on, until I started getting frustrated and told Tara's husband that he is cruel for forcing his wife to live in the mountains where her mobility is so limited. He got angry, told me I have no idea how hard it is for him, even with all the help, and I should mind my own business. He is right that I don't know how it is for him, but I do know how it is for Tara, and that she is basically a prisoner here. Am I an idiot for what I said? Not an idiot. He is only thinking about himself and what he needs. Yes, caregivers can have burnout, but she would like to be an individual who can be independent. She's lost enough. Her quality of life should also be important, especially with kids she wants to continue raising like before. Now, for the next story. Am I an idiot for yelling at a loser to shut the duck up? I, female 34, go to a gym nearby 4 times a week. The classes are 1 hour long each, and you go from treadmill to rower to weights. There is one lady who comes in with her friends, who I'll call the Banshee, that are incredibly annoying. I'll also add that I have social anxiety disorder and am slightly on the spectrum, so loud distractions like that really stress me out. They play music during the class, but I'm actually able to zone out most of the time and just listen in on the coach's voice or just try to enjoy the music if it's something I like. The Banshee and her friends talk at the beginning of class when the coaches are explaining what the workout is going to be, and the Banshee takes it upon herself to scream every time we are at the end of a block or sing, not well, very loudly to the music. Now, while the talking is annoying and distracting, I deal with it because I don't feel it's my place to tell someone when they can speak. But the screaming. Jesus, this woman must have implanted a harpy whistle down her throat. Most of the time I try to ignore it even though I hate it, but today I just couldn't. We were at the end of the block and she did something like, "Yeah! Come on! Wahoo, yeah!" So I just screamed out, "Jesus Christ, just shut up!" The guy on my right said something like, "I know, right?" And the lady on my left said, "It's so obnoxious." The Banshee didn't say anything back, but looked really embarrassed the rest of the time, and decommissioned her harpy whistle for the rest of the workout. Anyway, now I feel kind of bad for yelling in the first place. Not an idiot. Ugh. People saying you should have just talked to her or the instructor first, lol. Unless this lady was 5 years old, I'm assuming she should know better than to be a spectacle. Everyone sucks here. I find those people extremely obnoxious too, but the wooing is more or less encouraged by the studios. As for talking during the coach's instructions, you could ask the coach to step in rather than blowing up like that. I recommend earplugs anyways. The music is so loud you'll go deaf. Now, for the next story. Am I an idiot for not telling my boyfriend I own the house we live in? My boyfriend, 25 male, and I, 26 female, recently decided to move in together. His lease had expired and his roommates were looking to move out with their girlfriends. The rental scene where we live is crazy at the moment, and he couldn't find anything close to where he works that fit his budget. We've been together just over a year, so I decided to offer him to move into my place. It's only about a 20-minute commute for him to get to work, and my friend recently moved out to go and live with her parents again, so it was just me in the house. He agreed, and he moved in about 3 weeks ago. The issue began when he started to ask how much his half of the rent was. I responded and said rent wasn't an issue, and that it's just easier for me to continue with how it was before he moved in. He was taken back, but we agreed to split water, electricity, groceries, etc. 50/50ths. Last weekend I had some family over and my dad was asking me about interest rates and my mortgage. He overheard this conversation, and after my family left we had an argument. He was upset that I didn't tell him that I owned my home. He feels as if I lied to him and deceived him. He's upset because he feels like I betrayed his trust. I do see where he's coming from, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. I was eventually going to tell him, I just didn't think I absolutely had to tell him at that moment. Most of my friends are telling me that I should have told him before he moved in, but a few of them firmly believe that it wasn't a huge deal. Ultimately, I think the reason is that I don't tell my boyfriend that I own the house we live in together, and telling him it's no different if we moved into a rental together. Edit. This was the only thing my man didn't know about me. Owning my home is a privilege I never thought I'd ever achieve, so when I tell people I feel uncomfortable because I don't want it to appear like I'm flexing. Finances were something that my parents always told me shouldn't be discussed. I don't know specifically how much he makes, and the same goes for him. Also, we are good. I've profusely apologized and admitted it was dumb to not be truthful and forthcoming. And because he's the greatest guy ever has forgiven me. Not an idiot. You aren't married to him. You're not charging him rent. And there's no pressing need for him to know you're buying the house. Tell your friends to lay off. If he can't handle the fact that you're buying a house and he can't even rent one, send him on his way. You're an idiot. In any case, because you don't hide things from a partner. I don't even understand this story. Why would you not share with your boyfriend of over a year that you own the house he just moved in? Now, for the next story. Am I an idiot for wanting to buy something for myself but not my wife? My wife, female 28, and I, male 30, have been married for 6 years. I've always been the breadwinner while she hasn't worked in 3 years. The company she worked at went bankrupt, and then COVID made it hard for her to get a job in her field, so she became a housewife, then a CHM since our first kid 1 year ago. She's a great CM and does a lot of the child care. I like to feed and play with our kid at night, but she does all the care while I'm at work. We have a joint account where everything for the house, cars, etc. gets paid from. She has her own account as well, and I have one too that I just use as a savings account. Half my earnings go to the joint account and half to the savings account. I give my wife $100 a week for her personal account for helping around the house and with our kid. But if she needs something that's shared for the house or gas money that comes from the joint account. We also go shopping weekly for groceries and all that comes from the joint account too. She has access to all the money, but I don't let her spend too much, so that's why she gets an allowance. She usually just uses her personal money for clothes. Last week she bought a new pair of expensive boots. My wife also has credit card debt that I wasn't involved in, but I'm helping to pay off since she obviously doesn't work right now. This month I got a bonus from work and used it to pay off her debt completely. It was about $10K. I also wanted to buy myself a PS5 and asked my wife if that was okay since I was trying to be polite and make joint decisions with her. She told me, "Well then, do I get to buy something too?" I was really confused because I just paid off her entire debt recently, and she bought boots last week from the allowance I gave her. She told me it wasn't fair if I get to buy something and she doesn't, but I said I never buy stuff like that. She said I spend money on food all the time, so it evens out. But I don't spend that much, maybe like $5 a day for lunch at work. I ended up telling her to just forget about it. I didn't need to buy the PS5. But now she's telling me I'm an idiot because I would rather make both of us miserable than buy her something. But I just didn't want to spend $1,000 instead of $500 when I just paid $10K on her debt, so I changed my mind. I can see how she doesn't see paying off debt as a treat, but it was still a lot of money. And she also buys fun things all the time with her allowance while I put my extra money into the savings account. I don't think she likes that I save more than I let us spend because she likes to buy stuff all the time. Her sister is also a CHM, and her sister's husband always remarks how he can't afford all the new clothes she wants to get. So I think this is just some kind of spoiled behavior that their parents taught them. So am I an idiot? Not an idiot. You did pay off her debt. If you could afford it, you should have just bought it. FYI, saying allowance makes it sound like she's a child and not a wife. Why don't you look up the cost of your area's childcare and cleaning services and see how she's saving you? She's very easily saving you at least $1,000 a week alone. No idiots here. You guys need to have a chat and get on the same page financially. Being a stay-at-home mom is a proper job, even if she doesn't get paid for it. Does your wife get any day in how the money in the savings account is used? You are right, though. Paying off her debt was a massive benefit to her. Now, for the next story. Am I an idiot for objecting to a group of people coming in and playing a loud game at my table in a coffee shop? My team at work is remote, so I work from home. I typically spend part of my workday at a local coffee shop where most customers are working on their computers. It's a popular spot, so sometimes it's hard to find a table. Often customers who don't know each other will end up sharing the largest tables. When I arrived at the coffee shop today, the only open table was the largest table in the shop. It wasn't an enormous table. It seats 5 people total, but only 4 comfortably. I set up my computer and got to work. I was finishing up a weeks-long project against a deadline later today. About half an hour later, 2 men approached the table and asked if anyone was sitting on the other side. I said no and moved my sweatshirt off the table to make room for them. I assumed they were there to work because they wore backpacks. They set their backpacks down and went to order their drinks. When they came back, one of them said to me, "Just so you know, 6 more people are coming and we are going to play Dungeons and Dragons here, so it will be pretty loud." I objected. I said that it was fine if they were here to work or have conversation on the other side of my table, but trying to squeeze 7 people into the 4 remaining seats and playing a loud party game wasn't going to work for me. They told me I was entitled and that, because this was a public space, I basically just had to deal with it. I thought this was rude. I told them they were crowding me out of my own table because it would be impossible for me to work at the table if they were using it as a game table with a lot of other people. They had already asserted that it would get very loud. I decided to leave because I didn't have time to waste with a fast-approaching deadline. As I was packing up, they mocked me for being upset, saying that they were confident I'd figure it out and that this too shall pass. Because there were no open seats in the coffee shop, I just went home. To me, it seems that if someone is at a table first, then anyone who joins that table should be basically respectful of that person. Yes, it's a public space, but am I really entitled to ask that they not disrupt my table with a loud game because I was already sitting there? What's the etiquette for sharing tables in a public space? Edit. To clarify, this coffee shop is right next to a university. Some people bring 27-plus-inch desktop monitors and camp out all day. I don't. 95–100% of customers are studying or working. It's definitely the norm at this shop, more so than others I go to. Before my current laptop-based job, I worked as a barista for several years. I know to share space, and I also keep buying things to pay for the space I occupy. I buy something every hour, including at least 1 meal each time I'm there, and I usually stay 3 hours. I did not expect or ask for silence or quiet. The coffee shop normally has ambient noise. My objection was specifically about these men using the table as a D&D game table with a group too large to fit, because this effectively forced me off the table. Not an idiot. I don't know how people are saying you're an idiot. They crowded 7 people into a table with only 4 seats and you were already there. They could have done this anywhere else. You're not an idiot, but you should probably start working in a library to avoid this in the future. Not an idiot. If they were 1 table over and loud, I'd say suck it up and deal with it. But if you were at the table first and they asked to join and you graciously allowed them to, you didn't have to. They should show at least enough respect to 1, not take up more than half the table, and 2, not prohibit you from doing what you were doing before they arrived. Now, for the next story. Am I an idiot for not taking my sister to the ER in my new car? My male 31 sister, female 27, decided to use a power washer yesterday and cut her leg and needed 14 stitches. I'm not exactly sure how she managed to do this to herself, but this isn't the first incident she's had. She's frequently careless with power tools and often tries to do things herself when she shouldn't, leaving messes behind or getting herself hurt. I was in her neighborhood visiting my friend when the incident happened, and I guess she saw my car across the street because she called me and asked me to take her to the emergency room. Now, I have a new expensive car with leather seats, very high-end. When I saw the state her leg was in, it was very messy. She didn't do a good job cleaning it up, and it would definitely ruin my car. I asked her where the keys were to her car and said I'd take her in her car, but she said that she dropped it off for maintenance that day and then started to get into my car. I said no, she should stay there and that I'd find an alternative. I went over to my friends and explained the situation and asked to take his car. He's got a beat-up Toyota. He said no problem, and so I took it. I got my sister to the ER, and I even waited for her and took her home after. But on the way home, she told me I was an idiot for making her wait around when she was in pain, and there was no reason I couldn't take her in my car. I thought I found a reasonable solution, and she wasn't even waiting that long. I'm pretty annoyed with her because I didn't need to devote my whole day to caring for her, and she should be more careful when using these tools. Am I an idiot? Edit 1 for more info. I didn't call an ambulance because she didn't want me to. She didn't want to deal with them or pay a hefty bill, so she called me instead of 911. If she went through the effort to get a hold of me, she would have had an ambulance there if she wanted it. And plus, even after the car situation, I still got her to an emergency room faster than an ambulance would have. Time-wise, I really don't think grabbing towels and stuff from inside would have been much faster. My friend was just across the street, and his car already had supplies and towels and stuff in it because he was taking his car hunting, hence why I didn't think he'd care about the blood. I just thought that was a better all-around option. Edit 2 for an update. I will offer to pay my friend to detail his car. You're an idiot. 14 stitches sounds like a pretty serious wound, and those warrant medical attention as fast as possible. You could have gotten a blanket or a coat or pretty much a dozen other things to protect your car in a fraction of the time it took you to go get your friend's car. Your priorities are out of whack. You're an idiot. And it shows by how you have to denigrate her at the beginning of this post. Where I live, an ambulance won't take you for just some stitches anyway. Way to elevate material goods over care and concern for your sister. And yes, a towel and compression would have easily solved your problem.